Hello and welcome to Say Yes to You and Why You Don't. I am Claudia Braun, mindset and lifestyle coach for busy women who are really good at saying yes to others, but not always as good at saying yes to themselves. So I want to talk today about the self-judgment that gets in the way. So I've been having a lot of conversations with people lately about this aspect of judgment, self-judgment, that really undermines people's ability to see themselves, see themselves accurately, to think of themselves in a way that is kind or loving. Because when we are seeing ourselves through that filter, through that lens of judgment, self-judgment, we don't. We don't see what's good about ourselves. We don't see the goodness, the gifts, the truth of who we are. We see through the lens of judgment, of criticism, of not good enough, of not doing it right, of not being right, of not being enough. And this is such an interesting conversation because I noticed that I have had this conversation with so many different people, and it doesn't matter how successful in the outside world they are, but inside they don't feel like they are enough. And sometimes achieving can be to keep proving I am good enough, to cover up, but then that becomes something that ends up being chased. And so this ability to see ourselves rightly is so at the heart of saying yes to you. I gave a workshop a couple weeks ago, and one of the participants said, I see that me giving all my time away is me not thinking I am worth it. I'm not worth taking the time for. And that was really, it's like she felt it and knew it in such a different way. And so I wanted to bring this conversation up and to really look at it from so many different angles of how that gets played out in our life and how it might be showing up for you. So I know for me, it has been around when I started my work and I started to put it out into the world, and there was that feeling of, is anybody going to want to work with me? Because, I was new at doing what I was doing, and really being able to step into the truth of who I was and why I was here and what I was here to do, and making that be bigger. And then that other voice that said, would anybody be interested? Would anybody want to listen? And this is the thing, is that the more we give that power, that voice of judgment, the bigger it gets. And the more we've listened to it from being a little kid, maybe, I've seen it where I was just listening to a woman, she was talking earlier, and she was just saying that, her mother saw all the things that she didn't do well, and she just focused on those things. Well, when we grow up in a space like that, where everything that we do that we don't do well is magnified, then we think that we must not be doing things all that well. And so we can do that to ourselves. We can become that person who is very perfectionistic. And if it's not perfect, then we think we're not okay. And the truth is, nothing ever is perfect, or it's not perfect enough. One of the workshops I've given, I tell a story about my grandmother, who I have very fond feelings of. I don't have a lot of memories of living with her because when I was young, she went into a nursing home, but she was a very difficult person to work for. And we had a woman who worked at our house, and she was very kind to us and a very wonderful person. And but my grandmother didn't like her, criticized her, didn't think she cleaned very well, didn't think she was very good at what she did, and she was very difficult. She was very hard to work for. And I kind of tell the line that, if my grandmother didn't fire them, they would quit, because I mean, she was just not easy. She was not easy. And that's how she was as a mom. I mean, she raised 5 kids, so she had a lot going on. And my dad's mom, and my dad would tell the story that she was just, she was a master gardener, but like trying to have her teach you anything was painful because, you were never doing it right. So when you grow up under that kind of feeling, energy, experience that at you, it becomes internalized, that voice and that kind of nitpicking, looking at what's not right, looking at what's not going well. And then it makes everything that we try to do really hard. And then judgment becomes the ruler, and judgment will create more self-doubt, more insecurity, more feelings of that no matter what I do, it's not good enough. And that feeling of not good enough is like a polluter. It just completely pollutes the area, and it will make it very difficult to feel at peace in your own life. So, as you're listening, where does the self-judgment show up for you? I know for me, when I was growing up, especially as a kid, I had so much self-judgment on my physical appearance. And anytime I went anywhere, there was just so much attention on myself, on what I looked like, how I looked, and it was never okay. It was never good enough. And it just created all of that insecurity within me. And it can show up anywhere. It can show up in physical appearance. It can show up on your work. It can show up in how you do relationships. So, what is it? I was talking to somebody else the other day, and she was saying that she had just gotten certified in something. And so she was able to put herself out to be able to do this work for others. And somebody actually, wanted her name has been passed on, and she was going to be doing this work, and she just felt so inadequate, like somehow she wasn't qualified. And she saw people who were less qualified doing the work. So it's the thing about that judgment is it makes something real, and it can feel so real in our minds, and it can feel like, well, that's just the way it is. But the truth is, it's not how it is. It's what the judgment is telling us it is. That line about fear, the acronym false evidence appearing real. And I would say that judgment is fear. It is false evidence appearing real. It shows us somehow there is something wrong with me, whether it's my physical appearance, whether it's my intellect, whether it's my ability to communicate, whether it's my ability to work with people, whatever it is, how I parent, whatever, it is a statement put on and then validating it and making it real. But you make it real by putting more energy into it, more strength into it, by continuing to believe it. And I liken this judgment. I was thinking about somebody, I was in a group earlier and somebody was saying, okay, so if you gave the judge a name, what would it be? And I'm thinking that the judge really is like the boogeyman, because when you look at it, there's nothing there. When you really go into it, you see there's absolutely nothing there to validate it. There's nothing there that is true. But when we don't look at it and we just say, oh, that's how it is. My grandmother had this way of making people feel terrible, and that somehow they weren't good enough because all she could do was criticize them. And so I know she, raised some children that didn't feel very confident. And those beliefs unexamined will create that experience. And so the gift here is the willingness to really look at, as Byron Katie has these questions. The first question is it true? And then the second question is it really true? And the third question is, who would I be without that belief? So is that true? Like, what you are making true about somehow, some way, you're not good enough, or there's something wrong with you, or somehow you can't do that thing that you want to do. Say yes to yourself. There is usually a judgment behind it. Judging yourself, that somehow, if you give yourself permission to say yes to yourself, somehow it says something about you. You're selfish. You're not living up to the expectations of somebody who is a good person, who does everything for everybody. It is a judgment. But then you look at, is that true? Is absolutely true. And who would you be without that belief? How would things change? And this is this thing about judgment, is that so many times it gets unexamined. We just let it run rampant. And I know that, when I was a young person and I was letting the judgment run rampant on myself and who I was, I just believed it to be true. There's something, I'm not attractive. I don't look good. There's something wrong with me. It created so much disorder in my eating because of that. And I know I'm not alone. There's so many women who struggle with that. And it's that unexamined belief, letting that dominate. And when you let that dominate, it controls your actions. I have coached many women where weight loss was an issue for them. And when they weren't losing weight, they had all this judgment on what they looked like and how their clothes fit, and finding them limiting their social life because of that, or limiting wanting to be photographed or being in a group situation. But again, it's all of those ideas that we put on that make it that way, because it's us doing that to ourselves. And then that makes the experience real for us. And so the good news is that's also where your power is in really examining this. Use these questions. Is it true? Is it true? Is it absolutely true? Because most of the time, I'd say probably all of the time, this lives in us unexamined. And we do ourselves a disservice by not investing in asking these questions and getting to the root cause of the answer to these questions. Because I frequently say that I take my clients from chaos to peace. And that happens because we're willing to do the work, go within, to really go beneath the surface. On the surface, everything can look really fine. Most of the time, you wouldn't know how much self-judgment people walk around with, because you don't know what's inside somebody else. But you know, when you're in your own self-judgment, how much pain that causes, how much it restricts you, how much it holds you back. So much self-restraint when we think there's something wrong with us. We keep ourselves from putting ourselves out there, from participating, from sharing. Because maybe it won't sound right. Maybe someone will think we sound stupid. Maybe we'll make a mistake. Maybe we'll say the wrong thing. Maybe we'll say the wrong thing to the wrong person. So many different configurations that the judgment has and how we could get it wrong. It doesn't look at how much we could get it right and how much the world needs us to put our offering out there and our version and our perspective. Because each of us comes here with a very different perspective, and we're here for a reason to share that perspective. And by sharing that perspective, other people benefit. But when we allow self-judgment to run us, it holds us back. It can strangle us. And it will definitely keep us in that place of not saying yes to ourselves in very subtle ways sometimes that keep us from feeling authentically alive and being truly us. And I believe we're all here to fly. And I know that these judgments keep us so landlocked and grounded in cement. There's no freedom. There's no lightness in that place. So consider, where is your mind today holding you hostage in judgment? Because I would say that judgment holds us hostage. We are prisoners to the judgment when we let it run us. I know I was, and I hear it in every person that I talk to who is not willing to examine their judgment and just accepts it as that's just how I am, or that's the norm. It doesn't have to be that way. We all have the ability to examine these aspects of ourselves that don't allow us to be us. And judgment, my friend, is not our friend. Judgment is a weapon that we can use against ourselves. And I believe that those people who have passed down their judgment have done so unknowingly. They have done so because they too were hostages, prisoners to the judgment. I truly believe that nobody harms another out of conscious, knowing mind. We're not conscious when we are in judgment. We're not making a conscious decision. It's very unconscious. It's something that's been deeply indoctrinated into us from some ideal that perhaps we could never meet. And then it's really an opportunity to look at, is that even something I want for myself? So know that judgment does not serve you. It's not our friend. It's not here to heal us. But the healing happens by looking at the judgment. When we look at the judgment, see it for what it is, the boogeyman that doesn't really exist in the dark, when you really look at it, you see you are more than enough. You see that what you bring is unique and is your gift. May not look like somebody else's, probably doesn't look like somebody else's, because you're not them. You're here to be you. You know, the Oscar Wilde saying, be yourself, everybody else is taken. It's a good one. And it fits here. The judgment comes from that place that somehow we should be somebody else, or somehow we should be different than who we are. And again, it's like, is that true? Is that absolutely true? And who would I be without that belief? How much lighter would I feel without that belief? You're here to thrive. You're here to be in your true, authentic nature. And when you're in your true, authentic nature, you own your unique gifts and talents and the power that you are here to extend to yourself, to others, to the world. This is how you make a difference. So I would love to hear your takeaways from today and what this brings to your life, because self-judgment is a big thing. So many people, doesn't matter what circle I'm in, identify with not believing in themselves or keeping themselves back because they have judged themselves so harshly, or not allowing themselves to be fully who they are because of what somebody else once said to them, or because of what their parents said, or a husband said. So where is judgment playing in your life and holding you back? And what would change if you were willing to look at it and let that go? Please leave it in the comments. I would love to hear. And if you haven't downloaded my 3 strategies to own your yes and your no, please do. I will leave the link in the show notes, but you can always go to www.freebie.claudia-braun.com. So thank you for being here. I delight in having your participation, your listening. I'm so excited to be sharing this with you. And again, I'm Claudia Braun, mindset and lifestyle coach for busy women who are great at saying yes to others, but not as good at saying yes to themselves. So I will see you again next week. Bye for now.